you know, it's been a little while since the Adventure series was out, and we do have the Mezco Indiana Jones coming around the corner, and I do have the SH figure arts, but you know, my Adventure series were just sitting on the shelf, and there's a couple things that bothered me about them, mainly how clean some of them looked, and mainly Dial of Destiny Indiana Jones's pants color, because they're dark brown, they match with his shoes, and it is not accurate to any of the movies whatsoever. So I decided to do a little customizing and fix that stuff myself. So when you pull the Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny Indy out of the box, his pants are dark brown, and in that color right there. And Indy's pants have always been more of like a rosy kind of tan, rusty color. So not brown, not quite khaki, but you know, somewhere in between. So I went ahead and remedied that because it really bothered me. Every time I looked at it, I'm like, that's not accurate to the movie. I don't know what Hasbro was doing. And I also gave his jacket a black wash, which makes it more shiny and more leather looking. And I didn't want to dirty him up too much because at this point in the movie, he's just gotten some fresh gear and he's going in to find the other half of the Antic Tierra. So, you know, I just wanted to have a more movie accurate look. And he can also be, you know, a Kingdom of the Crystal Skull Indiana Jones, although he did have a holster and a pistol in that movie, and we don't get one for here, but there are options. You can, you know, get the cheap extra one and put it on there, or even leg swap at that point if you wanted to. But this is probably the most accurate color out of all my figures. I'm not going to go and repaint all of them, but you know, I'm really proud of how this turned out, and I did a couple layers with some acrylic, cheap acrylic paint from Walmart, and then of course I did a clear coat so it doesn't chip. I did actually 3 clear coats, but it looks good. He still articulates. We still get the thigh cut, all that stuff. I didn't limit any articulation whatsoever, and I'm pretty proud of that because that's my first time like fully painting something like that. So that's the Dial of Destiny Indy, and he looks great in my opinion now. And as far as my shelf display goes, my Raiders Indy body, like the first release Indiana Jones, is my stand-in for the end of the Last Crusade Indiana Jones because I have my SH figure arts for basically the entirety of Raiders. Any scene that you want other than Cairo is in the SH figure arts figure. So I use that body and the head from the Last Crusade Indy with the tie to do this custom, and then I of course dirtied him up with a wash and some aging and weathering stuff. So it looks like his shirt is really dirty and messed up. His pants too. Some dirt on his knees and all that stuff. Because, you know, he got dragged across a boulder on top of a tank. Beat the crap out of him. You know, his head should be bleeding up at his forehead and down here. But I didn't want to mess with the face sculpt at all. I don't really want to do that. But I dirtied him up and stuff. So now he'll sit on my shelf and I'll actually be closer. I wish this was open a little bit more, like down to here maybe. And I'm sure there's ways to do that. You could swap the Cairo torso if you wanted to. But I don't have an extra one of those, so I'm not going to do all that. But yeah, I think he looks a lot better. Definitely more representative of the end of the Last Crusade, especially with that brown dirt and stuff, because you know, he had that red clay dirt everywhere at the end of the movie in the desert. So I really like how he turned out, and he really represents that movie for me now, especially with that head sculpt. So yeah, proud of that one too. And then you see, of course, we got some Temple of Doom stuff, the first Indiana Jones movie that I saw. So let's talk about that stuff. So one of the things I really like about the Indiana Jones movies is by the end of the movie, Indy's all beaten up, he's battered, he's scarred, he's got some cuts and bruises, he's all dirty. And you know, Temple of Doom especially, it's grimy and it's gross and he's all dirty and stuff. And you know, they did do a little bit of weathering when you first get the figure, but I really wanted to bring out how dirty he got. So his shirt is like kind of stained, kind of like muddy and black from like grime and coal dust and all that stuff down in those mines. Oh, and I also did the belts on, or the whips on the Last Crusade and this Indiana Jones, and the holster and belt as well. I put some wash on there so they look more leather-like and have kind of a shine. But you can see his shirt is dirty, and on the back, they sculpted those cuts, but they didn't want to put the blood there, so I put, you know, some cuts in his shirt, and then of course it seeps through, so there's some blood around the cuts as well, and I think it turned out pretty good. Not too much blood, but, you know, down there at the knee as well, he's got a cut open pants, so you know, he cut his knee, so it'd be bloody. And I also put some blood on his hand because he cut his knuckles open, so those would be bleeding too. And of course, there's a little bit of dirt and stuff on his arm and on his chest. Didn't really mess with the head sculpt, but his pants are dirty, all that stuff. So I think he looks a lot more like the end of the movie here. He's way too clean to be Temple of Doom Indiana Jones, and I was like, I can fix that. It's not that hard. And yeah, anyone can do this himself, really. It's not difficult at all. So let's talk about the last thing up here. I know y'all are seeing it. The mine cart that, so my girlfriend is the 3D printing whiz. I just tell her what I want to print, and she does it for me. And so I found this minecart, and I was like, print this. And then all the stuff on the front, the lantern, the hitch, the brakes, all that stuff, she modeled and designed so that it would be closer to the movie. Like, the minecart isn't a one-to-one of the movie, but it's close enough, and it works really well on my shelf. There's a hitch on the back and all that stuff. And of course, I painted it, weathered it, all that good stuff. There's the broken brake that didn't quite work, so Indy had to get out and use his boots. And he's like, water. And then, you know, all that water comes, and he's like, well, careful what you wish for. Painted the lantern there, and it does look a little bit like it's lit up. I tried. So it's kind of darker in the middle, lighter around the edges. So yeah, and there's short round in there. So they just kind of sit in there on my shelf. Because, you know, it would have been cool to get a couple plays. That's like a minecart that included Willie, maybe just Willie in a minecart in a Thuggy cult. But you know, Hasbro's, Disney specifically was like, no, we can't do any of that, even though Temple of Doom has been around for 40 years at this point. It's a kind of old movie, but you know, that's how Disney is nowadays. But I just wanted to show y'all my customization and my improvements to some of the baseline Adventure Series figures, because you can always do better. You can always make it more what you want it if you have the time and the patience. And it doesn't take much skill, so I'm not going to say skill, but you know, it is trial and error. Sometimes you overdo it and you're like, well, I won't do that next time. And I think all of these turned out pretty well, especially those pants on the Dial of Destiny Indiana Jones. So yeah, of course, like this video, subscribe if you're not subscribed, comment, all that good stuff. Check out my Patreon for my early videos like reviews and all that stuff. $1 a month, do all that stuff. I love you. I will see you next time, and bye-bye.